aging you?
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think. I have a son that she's close in age.
Tell her not to give you any extra years that you have not earned yet, right?
Right.
All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We thought we would go live, and hopefully one of our close friends is going to hop on here with us. So we're just getting ready to get started on the recipes. I'm going to pop you up on my stand here, and we're going to get started. And then when we see her, today is actually Sam, our friend that no longer lives here. Today's her birthday. So,
Happy birthday, Sam.
yeah, happy birthday. She'll be on there. I'm sure she will. She wouldn't miss this for the world, even if it was from Facebook. All right, so we're going to be making two recipes, like I said. So we're going to be doing a chicken bruschetta pasta. So quick, healthy, easy. Those are kind of my favorite recipes. Many of you guys that have been to my shows know I don't make anything that's really fancy or, things that have too many moving parts. I like simple. I like 30-minute recipes, and if I can do it in less than 30 minutes, then that's even better. Let's see. Sam's on! Hello, my love! Happy birthday! So, Miss Sam, tell us what your favorite Pampered Chef product is. All right, so back to chicken bruschetta pasta. So that's what we're going to be doing for our main recipe. And then, of course, we have to have dessert, right? So we're going to be making a chocolate pull-apart bread. And then, of course, with fresh whipped cream. Because whipped cream just makes everything better, I think, anyway. So chicken, how many of you guys eat chicken? A lot. Like 3 to 4 times a week? Not that much? Okay. My family, we eat it so much that I feel like we should be walking around clucking most of the time. And why do we buy chicken? We buy chicken because it's less expensive. It's typically will stand up to cooking. Even if you're a bad cook, it's something that most people can still cook. So Sam says, thank you. This week, it's the all-purpose pot is her favorite right now, which they just discontinued that. We're so sad about that. But so chicken, a lot of people are intimidated, though, to cook any kind of protein because they're afraid they're going to dry it out, okay? My husband, for years, and I used to wonder why he would always ask me to pass the barbecue or ranch dressing when I cook chicken. And years later, after 20 years of marriage, probably 10 years in, he finally tells me, Becky, your chicken just stinks, okay? It's dry and it's no good. So after all of those years of being married, I finally learned how to cook chicken that he doesn't have to have additional sauce with now. So that's kind of nice. So there's a lot of different tips that I'd like to share about chicken because most of us do spend a large part of our week preparing chicken or making our husbands prepare chicken if you're lucky to have a husband that cooks. So there's a couple tips though. How many of you guys buy your chicken in bulk? Meaning you buy the big pack, okay? When you get it home from the grocery store, what do we do?
Put it in my freezer.
You put it in your freezer. Do you separate it first or no? Do you leave it in the big pack?
The Costco's already separated.
Well, shoo, I need a Costco around. Man, I don't have a Costco up in my little Cowtown, USA area, so we are not that lucky. So me, though, I feel like I have this chicken ritual when I get it home. I have to bring it home. I have to take it out of the package. I have to separate it, and then, most of us will put it into, portion it out into bags, and then we freeze it. So there's a lot of tips. How many of you guys work a job? Okay. What time do you guys generally get home? 8 o'clock? Oh my goodness. Woo. Okay, and so the last thing you probably want to think about is cooking, right? Okay, so a lot of what I like to teach people is how to save time on the, you spend a little bit of time on the front side of it so that when it matters most, when you're actually cooking dinner, you can save yourself some time. And so with chicken, one of the things that I've learned is that if you pound your chicken out so that it's one thickness the whole way across, guess what happens? You reduce your cooking time, okay? Normally, most people, it takes 20 to 25 minutes to cook a chicken breast in a pan. Would you guys agree with that? Okay. So chicken really should not take any longer than 4 minutes per side, okay? Most people don't realize that because what we do is we tend to overcook it. We keep cooking it to make sure it's cooked. And all because it's fat on one side and then it's thin on the other side. So you're always trying to cook this fat part of the chicken. Meanwhile, the rest of it's already done. And so what happens is you end up needing ranch dressing or barbecue sauce because you dry it out. So we are going to show you a way. There's a couple different ways. So like I said, you can pound it. one of my gadgets that I love is called the Close and Cut. You may or may not have seen me use that before, which I'm going to show you if you haven't. So first thing I like to do though is trim up my chicken. And so instead of using a knife, I'm going to use my professional shears. I find it's easier for me to get exactly where I want to go on the chicken if I'm using shears that can cut, okay? So you guys know down in this place right here between the tenderloin that's on the side and the breast, there's always that ligament right there. Well, it's really hard to cut that out with a knife, and so I like to take my shears to it. And then you don't have that chewy piece of chicken later on that you're trying to chew through. And if you really wanted to get technical about it, you could just go straight down that line that's right there, and you could cut off the tenderloin to actually use for another meal. So you could separate the breast from this tender. How many of you guys buy tenders at the grocery store? Okay, so that's all that is just this little piece that's right here. That's the tenderloin.
I don't buy the breast because it freaks me out.
It freaks her out. Well, we don't want to do that. So, Sam, what are you having for dinner tonight? These girls are about to have chicken bruschetta pasta. What are you up to? All right, so we're just going to trim our chicken up. So what freaks you out about chicken, Nikki?
It's just
The texture?
slimy and gross.
Yeah. So we got a steal of a deal.
I like the feel of it raw.
We got a steal of a deal last month. There was a local, like, real small grocery store that's up in Waynesboro, and they had a 50-pound bag of chicken breast. 50 pounds of chicken for $40. Tell me I didn't grab that up, okay? But then because I'm so OCD, I had to come home, and guess what I had to do? Everything that I'm showing you, me and my husband spent about 4 hours. But now what's great is that I don't have to worry about seasoning it, pounding it, trimming it. It's already done for me, okay? So yes, this is one of those steps, trimming your chicken before you would put it into a freezer bag and freeze it, that I definitely recommend to save some time on the backside. Because my theory is this: if you already have your hands gross from touching it and having to separate it and put it into bags, you might as well take that extra 3 minutes to trim it, okay? So I definitely would recommend that you trim your chicken before you put it into a bag. All right, so now we have our chicken trimmed. I'm going to set those over out of my way. You guys will notice I normally, when I'm doing this, I only get one hand, okay, that's dirty, and I have one hand that's clean to work with. Anybody know how to do that? No? It's a life skill. I swear it's a life skill. Instead of getting both hands messed up, you just focus on touching the chicken with one hand, and then that way you always know you have a clean hand on the other side. All right, so the close and cut. This is the one tool that I was telling you guys about a minute ago. So instead of pounding my chicken out, what we're going to do is we're actually lay the chicken breasts on here, and we can fillet them in half, okay? How many of you guys eat a lot of grape tomatoes? How about grapes? Olives? Mozzarella balls? Bagels? Anybody like bagels? Anybody buy bagel thins at the store? Okay, so what this was designed for is basically to take those small tomatoes, grapes, mozzarella balls, olives, anything that's small that you typically have to sit there and cut in half one by one. And it's designed that you can run your knife through it and cut them all at one time. So again, it's a time-saving tool. So here's another tip for you guys. If you have small kids or grandchildren around and they eat grapes, make sure to cut them in half, okay? And the reason why they recommend doing that is because 35 kids a year die from swallowing and choking on a grape, okay? So it's definitely worth that extra, 2 minutes to cut those grapes in half, especially when you have this tool. So you guys will see that it's spring-loaded on this side where that plate's at there, and then it's also spring-loaded on this side right here. And so I'm just going to kind of lay my chicken breast on here. It's dishwasher safe, which is another perk to it. You're going to want a knife that's at least 7 inches. Okay, so I would definitely recommend a chef's knife for this, or the 7-inch Santoku like she has. You definitely want to have a knife that is longer in length than this is wide, okay? Because what you're going to do now is we're going to take it, and if you guys want to, you can come over and watch. Try to make this easy. Here, we'll do it up here. So you want to lay the knife here on the edge of the close and cut, okay? And when I press down, you guys see how the springs pull it, okay, and it holds it tight. So when I push down and I start wiggling my knife through, guess what I'm doing? I've now taken my chicken breast and I filleted it, okay? So I have 2 pieces of chicken breast now. You guys see that? So that instead of pounding it, when you pound your chicken, you actually get the muscles tighten up in the chicken breast. So typically it tightens up, and it will be a little bit tighter, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Tougher, you know, when you cook it. Versus if you slice it through this way, you're not tightening up the muscles in the chicken breast. So we're just going to do our other chicken breast. Here, let me point this down so we can make sure these girls can see this. There we go. So we're just going to kind of squish it on there, knife on the edge, push it down, and then wiggle your knife straight across. So again, with, you know, your grape tomatoes, your grapes, anything like that, you can do the same thing, and you'll cut through them all right at one time. All right, so we're going to set our knife and our close and cut out of the way. So now we need to add some flavor to our chicken. So this is the last step before I put my chicken in the bags and freeze it, okay? So I've trimmed it. I have either flattened it with a flattener or I've cut it with a close and cut, okay? And then I season it. And then I put it into the bag and then it goes in the freezer. So here's the pretty cool thing about it. You know, you're saving yourself time later on, which is the most important. But you're also building in flavor because the flavor is going to kind of absorb into the chicken as it's defrosting and as it's freezing. But it's also going to defrost faster, you know, again, when it comes time to cook it because you've pounded it out, so it's going to thaw quicker. All right, so back here on the back, let me wash my hands because I want to show you guys our cookware. Now, does anyone own our Pampered Chef cookware at all? Nikki, you do? Anybody else? No? Okay.
We have some of the, what are they, the pot things. The Dutch oven.
The Rock Crock? Okay. Yep, awesome. That's one of my favorite pieces. So they just restyled our cookware, okay? So Pampered Chef, this is one thing that we've been known for lots of years is our really, really good high quality cookware. Nikki, do you have the set or do you have some pieces?
I have the grill pan. I have the large.
The 12-inch skillet?
12-inch deep.
Uh-huh.
And then
Yep.
I have the 8 and the 10 inch.
Okay, so you've got all of the kind of basic pieces that most kitchens would need when it comes time to cooking. So how many of you guys have a non-stick cookware? Anybody have non-stick cookware? Okay. Anybody's cookware starting to flake at all? Okay, so if it gets to the point where it's starting to flake, that's actually toxic. That's what we were talking about earlier. You know, I blame my parents all these years later for my brain damage because when I was growing up, you know, I didn't like pepper and I still am not a huge pepper fan. And so I would always question my parents, I don't want pepper in my food, you know? They would tell me it was pepper. And really it was Teflon, okay, that had flaked off from the pans. And so we ingest that. Well, they now know that it has cancer agents in it, okay? And it's terrible for you to consume in your body. So Pampered Chef has always been on the front side of technology when it comes to cookware. Our last set of cookware and the set of cookware before that have never had any Teflon in them, and nor does our new collection, okay? So that for me encourages me to know that I'm not going to be consuming or I'm not going to feeding that potentially to my kids. So what they did though, there's a lot of features with new technology and new metals, and that's why they decided to give our cookware collection a facelift. It had been over 10 years since they had restyled our cookware, and a lot of things have changed in the world of cookware. So what's the one thing with your non-stick cookware that you don't like about it? It scratches? Absolutely. And if you're on Facebook, if you have something about non-stick cookware that you don't like, let me know. So we don't like that it scratches. Anything else? Most people don't like that it can't go in the dishwasher. Most non-stick cookware is not meant to go in the dishwasher. We have to baby it a little bit, meaning that I can't trust my husband to not use metal utensils in my cookware when I'm not there, to smack his hand if he tries to do it. So they took all of those things, all of those issues that we've had with cookware for a long time, and they fixed the problem, okay? So our new collection of cookware is actually metal safe now. It's also dishwasher safe. It's still made with the same exact metal that we used before. Just the coating has changed, okay? So it's PFOA free. If you guys are into that language, it just means that there's no harmful chemicals released when it goes up to temperature, okay? So you're not gonna also be smelling those harmful chemicals as they cook. The other thing that I love though is this hidden little feature on the handle. Do you guys see this? Okay, so your handle actually comes off. I know, right? So why is that important? Would that be important to anyone to have a removable handle?
Putting in a dishwasher or the oven.
In the oven. Think about it. Think about if you take off the handle, this takes up so much space on so many different levels, whether it's storing it or cooking with it. You know, if I'm cooking on my stovetop and I don't have the handle, I can neatly get all of my pans on there without the handles bumping each other. I don't have to worry about, you know, the kids running by and knocking it off. I've had that happen before. One of my kids, when they were younger, they ran by, the handle was just kind of out, just enough, you know, that a kid would hit it. And they hit it and, you know, a little bit of oil splattered on them, okay? Not something I want my kids to ever experience. But storage-wise is what I love. If you have a small space, a small amount of space for storing your cookware, this is what takes up so much room is the handles. And so with the new design, you can actually take all of them in that 12-inch skillet that's just been redone and stack them up in one stack. And because you don't have the handles, they stack in just one stack, okay? And then you can just kind of lay your handles in there. The other thing that I like though is how many of you guys have ever, because our cookware collection before was also oven safe, how many of you guys have ever, not thinking, went to reach in and grab a pan out of the oven without an oven mitt? Anybody ever done that? Yes, I am that person. I have done that. My daughter has I must pass these bad genes on to my kids or something. So I like the fact that I can, you know, put my pan in to the oven. I can take my handle off. And when this is done, I put the handle back on and I just take my pan out. And I don't have to have oven mitts to do it. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to preheat our pan for the chicken. And we're going to want it on a medium-high heat, okay? And she's got gas, so we're going to go probably with medium. And in the base of the pan, we're going to sit our cast iron press. Anybody do you have the press?
Yeah.
Okay. So I love the press because this is a great thing to actually let you, again, save time when you're cooking. We're going to preheat this pan. We're preheating the pan and we're preheating the press together. So why is that important? Does anybody know why it would be important to preheat the press? Yeah, so what we're going to do, because remember I told you chicken shouldn't cook any longer than 4 minutes per side. So when I put the chicken in here, the pan's going to be waiting for it, okay? Whenever you cook any kind of protein, you always want your pan hot first, okay? Most people, if they don't know any better, will turn the pan on, put the meat in, and then let the pan come up to temperature. And what happens is it actually boils from the inside out because you have liquid running through your meat, okay? And so if you slowly bring it up to temperature, it's like you're slowly raising, you know, the temperature of water, okay? So it tends to, again, it tightens up the muscles in whatever you're cooking, and it also dries it out. So with this, when the pan's hot, and that cast iron press is hot too. When I put the chicken into the pan and then place the press on top of it, I'm now cooking it from the top and the bottom at the same time, okay? And so that's how you can get chicken done in 4 minutes on each side. All right, so we're gonna season up with Italian seasoning because it's an Italian recipe. It's one of my favorites. We're gonna do just a little bit of pepper on each. And I'm only seasoning one side for right now because I'm going to put season side down when I put it into the pan. And then I'm going to season the top of it, and then I'm going to put the press on. So we're going to do a little bit of salt. And we're just going to sit this aside until our pan is ready for us. So any questions on the steps with the chicken at all? Pretty self-explanatory, right? You guys are so quiet. Why is everybody so quiet? Are you hungry?
It's Friday and it's been long.
It's Friday and it's been a long day. I love it. Okay. So while the chicken is cooking, we're going to go ahead and start cooking our pasta. So we're going to be using our everyday rock crock this evening. Who owns stoneware? Anybody own our stoneware at all? Any pieces of our stoneware? Lots of different ones. Okay. And who said they have the rock crock already? You said you have the rock crock, correct? What have you have it also, Nikki?
I have a stone.
Okay. The deep cover baker. Yeah. So kind of the same properties. It's got the lid. It's kind of a Dutch oven-ish
No, I
kind
got
of.
the rock crop stone.
Oh, the grill stone.
Yeah,
Okay.
There you go.
Yes, I got you. I'm with you now. It just takes me a little while sometimes. So what do you guys love about your stoneware? Easy to clean up. What else? Nothing sticks to it, right? Because it builds up that non-stick surface over time. How many of you guys have cast iron? Anybody have any cast iron? Okay. So what do you love about cast iron?
I hate it.
You hate it? Oh my gosh, I think you're the first person I've ever met that says they hated it.
I just got a 12-inch
I know.
skillet because
I don't like it. Because,
Don't like it?
No.
The only reason I got rid of mine was because I have wrist issues.
Okay, the weight of it.
Weight.
Absolutely.
Heavy, they're hard to clean.
So we hear the same things.
Some sticks.
We tend to hear the same things about our stoneware as we do with what you would typically associate with cast iron. Some people are turned off with the fact that you're not supposed to use soap on a stone, okay? It's just one of the things you're not supposed to do. Now, can you do it? Yes. Will it ruin it? No, okay? It will not do it. It will not ruin it. I know, it's a myth busted, okay? Mythbusters came in. No, I'm just joking. But really, they just did new research on it, you know, because again, they're always trying to make sure the information that we're giving to you guys is the most accurate information. And stones are actually more non-porous than what we originally thought, okay? And so if you use soap on your stone, that's fine. It just means that it's going to take longer for your non-stick surface, okay, like a cast iron seasons, for that seasoning to build up on your stone if you're using, okay? The soap's not going to get trapped down in the pores of it like we originally thought it would. None of that will happen. It just takes longer for it to season. So what are things that you don't like about stones? Anybody ever cracked one before?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's pretty frustrating, you know? Yeah, that's pretty frustrating when you spend $30 or $40 on something and you use it and it cracks, okay? I definitely would sympathize with that. Other things that I hear, the soap thing was a big issue for people for a long time of, you know, not feeling comfortable about not using soap on their stone to clean it. You know, the weight of it, that's absolutely an issue. Stones can be very heavy, you know, especially the bigger ones, the bulkier they get, they typically tend to be a little bit heavier. So they developed the Rock Crock line a couple years ago, and it has been probably one of our biggest line launches that we've ever had in the 38 years. Because again, it lets you do things that you typically can't do with a regular stone. So I'll show you guys this. The bottom right here, this ring on the bottom is the only piece of exposed stone that you'll see. The rest of it is covered by this black ceramic. And so what that does is it kind of gives a hug to the stone and protects it from cracking, okay? Because again, we don't want you spending $100 on something for it to crack. It also lets you use it in different places that you haven't ever been able to use a stone before. So normally you think of stoneware going in what? The oven, and some stones can go in the microwave because of size. So these can actually go on your stovetop, they can go in your oven, they can go under the broiler, they can go in your microwave, and they can go on the grill, okay? So, you know, remember I said I'll be doing summer parties, so while I'm making a main course, I'm also baking a cake on your grill, which is pretty spectacular. So for me, that's one of the things that I really like about the Rock Crock line is the versatility of it. You know, again, don't get sticker shocked when you see it. What I love is that you can make a ton of 30-minute and under meals in this one pot that you can't do with a lot of others. You know, think of that pot roast. Sam actually brought that up. She's having a pot roast tonight for dinner tonight, guys. So normally when I cook a roast, I like to sear it on all sides to get it nice and brown before I bake it. And what that does is lock in the juices. when you're baking it. And so I can take this, I can brown my roast on the stovetop, and then I can take this pan straight from the stovetop into the oven and let it bake. And then when it's done, I can pull it out of the oven. It can go right back onto the stovetop, and I can make my gravy with all of the drippings that are in there. And I've done it in one pot. So we know who's going to have to do dishes. Where's the dishwashers? Okay. Would you rather have 15 dishes to do or one? Exactly. I would rather have one also. Most definitely. Okay, so we have a 16-ounce box of pasta. So we have spaghetti. And then we're going to add 4 cups of chicken stock. Okay, this is what we're going to use to actually cook our pasta. Most of us would choose water. Chicken stock just gives you a little bit of extra flavor when you're cooking your pasta that you don't normally have. You know, they always tell you to season the water before you put your pasta in there because that's really the only chance for flavor that you have. So that's where chicken stock comes in. So we're going to pop the lid on, and we're actually going to microwave our pasta. Okay, 7 minutes to start cooking it. So how long does it normally take for a pot of water to boil when you're waiting for your pasta? Anybody ever timed it? So normally 7 to 10 minutes. So if you have a big, 8-quart pot of water it normally takes about 7 to 10 minutes for that water. So in the same time that I'm waiting for water to boil, I'm cooking my pasta. Okay, I'm not having to wait for that water to boil. I'm already cooking it. Again, huge time saver for me. All right, so our press is hot and waiting for us. Now, the metal on top of the press will be warm. Okay, so I'm just going to use my trivet to pull that off so I don't burn my hands. That's from many lessons learned, ladies. And we're going to put seasoned side down, and you should hear sizzle. That's the sound you want to hear. That's when you know your pan is hot enough that you can start cooking whatever kind of protein that you're cooking.
You need to turn the vent fan on right there on the microwave.
Just a minute. There we go. All right, and so we're just going to season the other side before we put our press on. So again, the Italian seasoning, our salt, and our pepper. And so when I put the press on, what sound do you guys think you're going to hear again? You're going to hear it sizzle, okay? And then that just means, again, that our press is hot enough that we're now cooking it from the top and the bottom at the same time. Okay, so when that press goes on, how will you know the chicken is ready to flip? That's always the question. Most of us are creatures of habit, and we have to kind of peek and take a look at things. Anybody like me? Anybody do that? If you're grilling, here's one of the biggest things mistakes that people make is when something's not ready to flip, it doesn't move. Okay? It will naturally release itself when it builds the crust and be able to flip. So if I have the press on top and I have this on the bottom, it basically forms a suction to the meat in the pan. So when I go to lift up the press, if the chicken is stuck, it's not ready to flip. Okay? It's naturally going to release just like it would from the pan. All right, so we are going to start making the bruschetta part of our recipe. And so we have 2 Roma tomatoes, and we're just going to use our corn more. Anybody have this little gadget? Anybody on Facebook have this little gadget? So you have the coring side here, you have a melon baller on this side, okay? So I like to use this to pull that little center piece out of my tomatoes. I like to use it on my strawberries to get underneath the green tops of the strawberry. I like to use it in my jalapenos to strip out the seeds in the inside of them. Your bell peppers, same thing, to use, to pull out the ribs inside. So now we have this little tool called a veggie wedger. And basically, you can look at it and kind of tell what it's going to do, okay? So it's going to do nice wedges of whatever you're cutting. So again, I like to use this for onions, my tomatoes, my bell peppers, anything I want to leave big. So I have, again, 4 kids. 2, the little ones, are picky eaters, okay? So a lot of times when I'm cooking, I want the flavor of something in the recipe, but I know that they're going to pull it out and they're not going to eat it. And so I like to leave those vegetables that they typically don't like, I leave them big so it's easier for them to pull them out. Because if they're small and they're diced and they know they're in there, guess what? They're not going to eat their food. But if they can pull them out with their own finger or own fork, they'll eat the food. And a lot of little kids are that way. So I'm going to sit this with the flat side down of the tomato. And you're basically just going to line up. I give it a little rock side to side, push it straight down, and now I've quartered. I've cut all the wedges, nice perfect wedges of my tomato. And I'm just going to throw these right into our manual food processor. All right, so we're going to add in with the tomatoes, we're going to add 3 to 4 cloves of garlic, depending if you're a serious garlic lover. My friends, some of my Italian friends would be like, Becky, you need to double that part of the recipe. No, not in my house, I don't. Our chicken, I can smell that it needs turned. Isn't that terrible that I cook so much chicken that I know it needs? The one, there it goes. So we're going to flip our chicken. You guys see those grill marks? Look at that. And that was what, maybe 3 minutes? Perfect chicken. And then we're going to put the crust right back on top. All right, so our garlic crust, you can leave the skin on your garlic cloves, okay? Everybody knows the difference between a clove and a bulb, right? A bulb is this. A clove is a section. I only say that because one of my friends, she's hosted many of shows with me, and she couldn't remember when she was making a recipe, and she was extremely proud of herself that she was cooking this really nice dinner for her husband, and the recipe called for 2 cloves of garlic. She put 2 bulbs of garlic in the recipe. Needless to say, it probably kept the husband away that night. Okay? Some of us need 8. Look, that could be another tip for you guys. If you want to keep your husband away, use bulbs, not cloves, right? So we're going to throw our clove in, and we're just going to press our garlic out. And again, I love it comes with this nifty little tool that's tucked away in the handle so that it's a cleaning gadget on one side. I like to use this if there's anything stuck down in the barrel part of it. But you guys can see here's the skin right on that piece. Some of these are so small you can just kind of press 2 in at one time. Did you guys know there's a difference between pressing garlic and slicing garlic? Everybody know that? So when you're cooking, pressed garlic has a true garlic flavor because when you press it, it pushes the oils out, okay? So you get that minced garlic, but all of the oils have been pressed out. When you slice garlic, it gives you a really sweet flavor of garlic and not so in your face, okay? So just remember that when you're cooking. So like when I make mac and cheese, I like a little hint of garlic back there, but I don't want it overwhelming. I want to taste cheese. How about it? All right, so we've got our garlic in. Anybody learn anything yet? If I haven't taught you anything yet, I'm not doing my job. All right, so we have fresh basil. Anybody like fresh basil? It's one of my favorite herbs in the spring and summer. Oh my goodness. Love the smell of it. So we're just gonna use our herb mill, okay? This is nice because any kind of herbs that you're going to use, your basil, your thyme, your oregano, you know, when you pull it off of the stems, you can throw it in your cilantro if you're making a salsa or guacamole. And what's nice is there's this little, you guys hear that little ball? It's like a little marble in here. And that helps to press the basil down as I'm using it. So when I'm doing this, I'm grinding up my basil. This is my little guy, Isaac. This is his favorite little gadget. And he always has to say, Mom, let me use it. You don't know what you're doing. Yeah, Isaac, evidently. He'd be laughing at me right now. Mom, keep shaking it. That's what he tells me all the time. Mom, keep shaking it. So you want probably about a tablespoon, okay? Tablespoon and a half, depending how much you like basil. We're going to add some salt. And again, probably a lot of this is to taste, okay? I don't overly season things at shows because people can be really sensitive to it. So some of you might be salters, where I am very light on the salting on my food at shows. So you want about a teaspoon of salt. And our chicken should be done. We're going to move this over here off of the heat. We're going to take our press off. We're going to let that sit for a second and then we're going to temp it. So the manual food processor. So I have our tomatoes, our garlic, our salt, and our basil in here. We're just going to pop our lid on. So as I pump the handle, we're going to mix and chop at the same time. And I'm going to get about halfway mixed, and then I'm going to add in olive oil, okay, to it. And that's going to help create more of a saucy consistency to it. Olive oil. And the recipe calls for 3 tablespoons of olive oil. I'm a big eyeballer. Anybody else? Eyeballers? Okay, good. I'm in the right house. Now you can see there's a little bit more liquid in there. More. That breeze feels so good, Nikki. Are you guys freezing? Everybody's like, you can close it if you guys are too cold, seriously. She just knows I get super duper hot because of this medical condition I was finally diagnosed with last year.
I'll just crack.
Yeah, I don't want them freezing. I would rather get hot. Trust me. And on top of the medical condition, I'm also menopausal. I was menopausal at 34, so you know the combination of it's just not good. All right, so we're going to temp our chicken, and we're looking for 165 degrees, and then we know our chicken is done. So here's the thing with thermometers. Most of the time, you take your thermometer and you just kind of stick it in the meat, right? Most people don't realize that there's a little notch on the side of your thermometer, and I'm going to show you. Look, 165, perfect. We're going to set that aside. There's a notch right here on the side of this thermometer. Can you guys see that? Okay. That's how far in the meat that your thermometer needs to go in order to get an accurate reading. So most of us would just take this thermometer and go like this, and it's not going to reach that part, which means that you're going to keep cooking it because it's going to be like 100 degrees, okay? And you're going to keep cooking it, and then you're going to need ranch dressing or barbecue sauce. Can you guys tell I've taught myself a lot of lessons in 20 years? Mostly how not to cook food. And how's cleanup going to be for this new pan? So easy that I can just wipe it right after us. So just with a paper towel, you can kind of wipe your pan out and you're done. All right, so one more ingredient that we need to do, and that's going to be zucchini. Anybody like zucchini? I love zucchini. It is a really great way to cut carbs out of a pasta dish. And so instead of adding double the amount of pasta, we can throw in a zucchini. That's going to take half of the place of the pasta. And we're going to spiralize it. So we're just going to cut our zucchini into thirds. Okay, you guys see this? And so we have this nifty tool called the spiralizer. The spiralizer lets you do 3 different cuts. So you can do a spiral cut. Anybody ever go to the fair before and you see those butterfly fries? You know, they're those nice spirals and deep fried potato. I mean, it can't be wrong, can it? It's probably not the healthiest of things for us, but they taste oh so good. And then you have, well, that's great. Oh, my blade's in there. I was like, wait a minute, someone's playing tricks on me. Let me take it out. Then you have this little key blade. It's like my kids call it a key blade from like a video game. You guys see that? So up here, it's going to make real thin spiral cuts of a veggie. So I would use that on something harder, okay? So like a sweet potato where it's really fibrous, you'll be able to get really, really thin slice or strands of the sweet potato. And then I like to take my knife to it and chop it up and make a sweet potato fried rice. Really, really good. Throw in your black beans and some cilantro and corn. So then the other side, this one's going to give you thicker noodles. Okay, so this is going to be more of like a linguine size noodle. And that's the one we're going to use for the zucchini. So this right here, where this typically stores, is right here, and the side of this piece. This piece right here, I want to make sure you guys see this. So it has 2 uses. One is to store the blade, and the other is to align the blade perfectly. So you're going to put this in, okay? You're going to set it in place. Then you're going to take your key blade, and you're going to stick it in the slot back here. And you're going to turn this little dial. That locks it into place, okay? So the plastic piece, just make sure that blade goes exactly where it needs to go and it hits exactly what it needs to hit when you put it in. You lock it in place, and then this plastic piece comes off. All right, so we're just going to take our kind of 3-inch piece of zucchini. It's going to go down on this center pin that's sitting down in the inside. And then you guys will see how the teeth came down when I dropped the handle down? And if anybody wants to try this, you're more than welcome to come over and try it. And we're just going to spin our handle. And out comes our zucchini noodles. You guys see that? Pretty nifty. So we're just going to do our next piece. Anybody ever bought spiralized zucchini or any vegetables at the grocery store? How much did you pay for them, Nikki?
A lot.
Yeah, my local grocery store, I feel so bad for them sometimes because I'm a picture taker, okay? I have a Facebook page where I try to teach a lot of tricks and tips and money-saving ideas to my customers. And so they're the victim of my pictures a lot of times when I find things that are really expensive. So a package of zucchini noodles, they'll charge you normally about $7 for, okay? It takes me about 45 seconds to do a whole zucchini, right? And how much do you normally pay for a zucchini? Very minimal, right? Normally, what, $1? If even sometimes, especially in the spring and summer. Yeah. So, I mean, that was the other day I found this package of asparagus. It had asparagus, red onions, and mushrooms. And it's like $7.60 for them to chop my vegetables. I don't think so. No. I am cheap, girls. All right, so we've got our zucchini noodles done. You guys see that? How fast that was? So we're going to take our pasta out. And again, it's only about 3/4 of the way cooked right now. So we're going to stir our pasta up. We're going to add in our zucchini noodles. Then we're going to add in our bruschetta that we made. And then we're just going to give that a toss so that we can coat our noodles and the zucchini with the bruschetta. And then it's going to go right back into the microwave with the lid on for about another 6 to 7 minutes. Does it smell good yet? Really? All right, so any questions on Facebook? Let me know if you guys have any questions about any of the products that I've been using. I'm just going to rinse up a couple of my tools real quick while that pasta's finishing, and then we're going to start with dessert. Bought what?
Instead of cookware at my party, I had so much money to spend, and they were having this hostess special at-home stuff. So I am like wall paper stuff and been that way for 20 years.
That's a good problem to have, you know? So I find people like you that have trouble figuring out, you know, what they want to buy. Sometimes people still want to have their own party, and so those are the perfect people to have a fundraiser, you know? Take your favorite charity and raise some money for them. It actually was my very first show I ever did with Pampered Chef 7 years ago. We did a fundraiser for my youth program at church. And we stocked their kitchen. We stocked the youth kitchen. Yep.
Becky, do you have the 5-inch knife?
I do. Yep, I can grab that. Just want to get the chicken contamination.
The knife is how I cut them. So they are very sharp.
They are extremely sharp.
And I did it. I just did a lot.
And they actually just restyled our knives. What was it? This past fall. So now straight out of package, we're actually have the sharpest blade, the edge of a blade coming out straight out of package. Even of the top 3 companies in the world that make knives, ours is now the sharpest knife, coming straight out of packaging.
See, I was doing that, what she's doing. You better stop. My husband would be yelling at me right now. He doesn't even like me to watch it.
You get used to it. Here, let me put the cover on. Just in case.
Careful.
Oh, goodness.
I use ours every single day. I make sure, yes, it makes it keeps it from getting
The notches? Yeah. Lots of air go down through. Yep. See, Nikki, you should sell this stuff. See?
It's German steel, that's good.
Still have a lifetime warranty on them.
Do you
You know what? So these are brand new knives because again they just restyled them. So I got the brand new set for free. But I had the set that she has. I'm gonna open your drawer up. So this was our last collection. This was around for 10 years. So I got my very first piece of the Forged Cutlery when I became a consultant because it was in my kit. Now I want you guys to think about it this way. I use my cutlery every single night in my house when I cook dinner, which is at least 5 nights a week, okay, that I cook. But I also used them at about 125 shows a year, okay, till they just restyled it. I've never once sharpened my knives, okay? They still don't need to be sharpened. If you take care of your knives, and the way that you take care of them is with a honing tool, okay? So you pass your knife through it 2 to 3 times about every 5 to 10 uses, and it takes those real small micro nicks out of the blade because there's a difference between honing and sharpening. Sharpening actually rebevels the edge of your knife, okay? Where honing just strips out those nicks. So a lot of times if the nicks are gone, your knife is still sharp, okay? And the honing also, it keeps your blade perfectly aligned because sometimes a knife will appear that it's dull, but it's because the blade is kind of shifted a little bit and then it's not running solid through like it should, okay?
So how often do you have to do that?
The honing, like every 5 to 10 uses, I'll just run it through a couple times. That's it. Yeah. And that's why I said I've never had to sharpen my knives because I take care of them. All right, so we have one ingredient left, and that's Parmesan cheese. Anybody like cheese? Yeah. So we're going to make it snow over here. I've seen enough snow at my house. Did you guys get snow?
I wasn't
A little bit.
today.
I had 17 inches where I live. Yeah, so like I said, I'm really sore from shoveling.
I love it.
So you want about 2 to 3 ounces of Parmesan, okay, freshly grated. If you're a super cheesy fanatic, then you can always add, more if you want more.
You should always shred all the cheese.
Why should you shred your own cheese, Miss Nikki? Tell these girls why.
Pre-shredded has nasty stuff on it.
So
to make
does.
not
It does. It has cellulose powder. Yes. If you look at your bags of pre-shredded cheese or even the Parmesan that's in that green can, I can't even stand the smell of that stuff. Look at your ingredients list and it does. There's 2 things I've always thought it smelled like. One is that, and then one is the smell of it, I can't stand it. But look at your ingredients label. It says cellulose powder. Cellulose powder is a wood derivative, okay? And so it's equal to sawdust. They put that in there because it's an anti-caking agent, okay? Because if you grate this and let it sit, it naturally clumps back together, okay? Naturally, it just does that. And so they have to add a preservative to keep it separated. What's funny is that outside the United States, it's one ingredient that most countries that care about their food sources have banned because of the gut issues that it causes. All right, so our pasta should be done. Let's see, we kind of maneuver ourselves around here. Make sure our pasta is done. It smells so good. All right, we're going to dump this right into our large So we dump that into our large stone serving bowl. Our chicken breasts we have that have rested. Okay, so now it's time to chop those up. And so we're going to use my nifty gadget called the salad choppers. Anybody have these? Yeah? So again, the name, it's one of those brownie pan items, you know, that doesn't, you can't kind of see past it. So does it look like I eat a lot of salad, girls? Let's be honest. Yeah, no. So mine primarily are for chopping up meat. So I love to chop chicken or pork tenderloin or my roast. Instead of standing there shredding with forks, I just grab these. And so we're just going to slice up our chicken. Yum. So any questions on this recipe at all, girls? Pretty easy, right? Is this something you guys would make at home? What do you think? You don't eat pasta? Yeah, just do it with zucchini. Yep. Or with spaghetti squash. You could just substitute it with spaghetti squash. It'd be really good that way too. In the rice cooker. So we're just going to stir in our chicken. And then we're going to top with our Parmesan cheese. So is that for dietary reasons or just preference?
Yeah, they both.
Yeah, my husband was diagnosed with pre-diabetic,
Okay.
so it was either, he had 6 months to straighten up his act or go on pills, and he said he was straightening up his act.
I hear you. My oldest son, he's a juvenile diabetic, so.
So you have white rice?
No, brown
Or
rice.
brown rice? We have a bunch of brown rice. We keep eating it, and we just keep growing. You guys give us a bag like this.
Yeah, that's what Bella.
All right, where should we put
I'll
this?
put it in the middle so they can go ahead and.
Perfect.
Or buy a Costco big bag.
Do you ever go to the International Food Market to do that? Because you can get all kinds of rice there. My neighbor, she was missionary in Thailand for 18 years, but she just ground rice and it was delicious.
I love jasmine rice.
I do too.
Me too. Oh,
Right.
yum. And if you want more cheese, I'm going to set it right here for you, ladies.
I think you gave me too many.
Well,
Yeah.
or you need this back.
I'm gonna use
Sure.
my fork. I don't have a problem.
Yeah, that's mine.
I'm gonna use
Thank
my
you.
plate again.
All right, so we're going to start on dessert, which is my favorite part.
Our dessert now is covered with the 80 calories
It's calorie free, ladies.
of frozen grapes. That's what we have.
Do these pop tubes scare anyone
Me.
when you open them? I know.
That's
I have to like,
Oh, I love cracking them on the side, making them pop.
You don't even have to crack them anymore. They
Oh.
just go by your piece of paper.
it drives me crazy.
I had one the other day that it wouldn't, and I just kept counting it.
And it wouldn't pop.
I had to make sure I could
I usually take them.
They scare me though. That sound,
Oh,
especially when you don't expect it. Anybody want salt or pepper? Because again, I don't do a lot of seasoning, so there is some extra salt and pepper. Good stuff? Yay! Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
That's what my Pinterest page is.
All right, so we're gonna start on our dessert. How many of you guys have ever made monkey bread before? No? Yes? Okay. So it's basically a play on monkey bread. Okay, so we have the oven preheated to 375. We're gonna be using our newer fluted pan. Nikki has this one and she's madly in love with it, just like I am. Extremely non-stick to the point where you can bake in here. You do not need to add any oil or spray it with anything, and everything's going to just fall right out of it. Okay, so you won't see me adding any Pam spray to it.
I made that pumpkin cake.
We have a stick of butter and a quarter of a cup of brown sugar that we're going to melt together. Okay, so we're in probably about 35 seconds. And so I have 2 packages of biscuits. Okay, so we have the smaller ones. If you were using the jumbo biscuits, that would work too. It just means you're going to have more monkey bread than you would have before, right? We're going to cut these in half. So kind of like bite-sized pieces is pretty much what they'll end up being. So you guys like the pasta? Is it good? Nice and light, right? It's not anything heavy. And if you aren't a chicken person, we've also done it with scallops in it. I've done it also with shrimp in it. So, yep. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Throw some asparagus in there. Oh my goodness. I'm on an asparagus kick right now.
I got some from Aldi a week ago, and it was like fresh, wild grown asparagus, which you never find that before.
Did you see the demo I did last night on my page? Are you in my Facebook group?
I am. I just rarely get on Facebook.
Oh, gotcha. So I did a shrimp pasta with asparagus last night. It was I'm really good at taking a recipe and saying, oh, I could probably make that better, and then improvising it, and that's what I did with a recipe that I found on Pinterest. Oh my goodness, it was so good. And my kids now love asparagus. They did not like it last year. And again, I'm one of those people that they have to keep trying it, right? We have to at least try it to make sure that we don't like it because our taste buds change. I didn't even like asparagus 2 years ago, but now I love it.
That's what my mom did with peas in her small one.
When she was little, she ate fresh peas out of the garden before we cooked.
Oh my goodness.
So, give me this. I don't like it.
You love peas. Maybe because you're making them from a bag.
That would never be the case.
Brussels sprouts. I love Brussels sprouts.
So we've got our biscuits cut up. We're gonna take white sugar, okay? Now, if you're on a health kick or you're, watching what kind of sugars you can you consume, just use whatever sugar you use. At home, I would probably use raw sugar because that's what we use at home. So I'm just gonna sprinkle our biscuit dough with sugar. If it has butter and sugar, it has to be good, right? Never met a Paula Deen recipe that didn't have butter in it.
We eat Brussels sprouts once or twice a week.
Why do you fix them?
So I'm just kind of flipping it over, and then I'm going to coat the other side.
Are you gonna roast them? And then we put balsamic or I'll shred them real thin and saute them in the skillet. That's what I do this week. Make grease from them.
Yum.
And I've also made a
I think my favorite way of pan doing Brussels sprouts is with bacon and onions.
And garlic.
And garlic, absolutely. Yeah. All right, so we're just gonna take cocoa powder, and same thing, we're just gonna kind of coat the top of our biscuit dough with cocoa powder. I'm just kind of sprinkling it over top. I'm gonna go back here in a second. I'm gonna throw them in the bowl and then just kind of coat them with my hands. Make sure they're all nice and coated. But what I find is it's easier for me to do it this way and have a little bit of sugar on the dough, because if you throw the dough in there and then put the stuff on top of it, the biscuit dough tends to stick back together. So this way they stay separated. Okay, so that's why I did it this way. All right, so you want about a tablespoon of cocoa powder.
Because when he was here on Tuesday, Chad told me, they were good.
Bring them on camera. Oh, sorry, it's a new feature on Facebook. It says bring her on camera. Probably should. All right, so we've got our biscuits covered. You guys see that? So I just kind of moved them all around with my hands. You see those on Facebook. And we're just going to put these right down into our fluted pan, also known as a bundt pan, right? Do you guys know the word bundt when it comes to products is trademarked? And so that's why we can't call it a bundt pan. Yeah. Who'd have thunk it? All right, so we're just going to stir our melted butter, which again was 1 stick, and then it's a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. We're just going to stir those together.
Everybody in our family says my mom stands with the time of lunch. And he said you can't find that anywhere.
And then you're just going to pour this mixture right over top.
He asked me to make a chocolate lava cake in a hot pot.
Mm-hmm.
It is so good.
And then this is going to go into the oven for around 21 minutes or until it's ready.
I threw a pan away, so I always use the pan when I first did it. We just tap it on, it stick every time. Finally, I got so frustrated with it and trying to get the dumb thing out, that pan went in the trash.
I use this one and I do not.
No, it doesn't stick. Now we have one thing left to make while that's doing its thing. I'm just going to get this stuff out of my way. So we're going to make homemade whipped cream with our whipped cream maker. Did anybody get this the last time? I know that this had just come out, I think, when you had your last party.
Yeah. You weren't technically.
Allowed to show it, yeah. So now you can get the whipped cream maker. So 3 ingredients. You're going to want heavy whipping cream, which is about a cup, okay? So your fill line, you guys see this frosted line around the outside edge here? That's your fill line for your heavy whipping cream. Okay, so they kind of, again, it's Becky proof. That's all I can tell you. So we're just going to pour our heavy whipping cream right up to that line. And then you're going to want 2 tablespoons of powdered sugar. And again, this is where whatever sugar you use at home, you can use in this recipe, okay? They recommend powdered sugar because it dissolves faster. It's not granule. Granulated sugar is going to kind of scratch the inside of your whipped cream maker up. If you're okay with that, I'm okay with that, okay? Like I said, we use raw sugar, so my whipped cream maker has scratches on the side of it. And I'm okay with that. So if you wanted to, you can change the flavor of your whipped cream depending on what you're doing, okay? So instead of adding the teaspoon of vanilla, I could add a teaspoon of cocoa powder in there. We could do chocolate whipped cream if you want chocolate whipped cream. Or just regular. Regular whipped cream or chocolate whipped cream? All right, we'll take a vote. Who wants chocolate whipped cream? Vote yes. Regular whipped cream? Vote yes.
Did you go for chocolate?
I'll go for it.
So everybody
We're
else did
adventurous.
chocolate?
Adventurous? Okay. I like adventurous. All right, so instead, so normally you would add a teaspoon of vanilla, okay? That's kind of your base whipped cream recipe. Again, you can play with the flavors. In the winter, I was doing a chocolate bundt cake with a ganache, and it was making peppermint whipped cream. So good. Anybody like hot chocolate? Float peppermint whipped cream in your hot chocolate. It is absolutely amazing. Anybody like Bailey's Irish Cream? Or Kahlua? Or Amaretto? Okay, you guys already know where I'm going with this one. So any Grand Marnier is the other one. That one's really good too. See, I get to test recipes, which is the best part of my job. Well, one of the best parts. You know, I got to try all the whipped cream so I can intelligently speak about it. Right? Exactly right. I'm working on those right now, my taxes. Anybody want to come finish them for me?
I'm going for our farm, so no.
Wait until after your birthday.
All right, so we're going to add our teaspoon of cocoa powder in. And if you want it extra chocolatey, then you just add more. So we're just going to take the plunger piece, and you're just going to push that right down inside and twist the lid to lock it in place.
Merry cousins, my party, your birthday.
And then you're going to pump the handle, okay? And it's going to take about 30 seconds for the whipped cream to be done. Or less. Most of the time it's less. Almost done. Can you hear the sound? Okay. Done. You guys see that? So you got stiff piece. All right, this is my serving. You guys can make yours. Just joking. Huh? 2 to 3 days is how long they say it'll last. Mine never lasts 2 to 3 days, so I've not tested that theory, to be honest with you, because it just doesn't ever last. And you know why, because it's just so good. I mean, it's chocolate. It can't it just can't be wrong. So on the bottom here, this little piece, whoa, I dripped. That was like torture, wasn't it?
Yes. It's like, bring your finger over here. Let's
So on the bottom, this piece comes off, and if you are going to store it, it goes right over the top to act as a lid, okay? So again, they kind of think of everything when they make these products, which I love. It had to be a woman that designed
Well,
it.
you know, if you made the Baileys or the Kahlua or stuff like that, you would want to keep it for a few days to specify.
What's that?
If you made it with the Baileys or the Kahlua or something, you would have it for a couple days because you would just like put it with your coffee. Huh?
Depending how big your coffee cup is, you know. Now, I told you guys earlier I drink 2 cups of coffee a day. Now, how big of a cup do you think I drink, though? You know, it's not a normal size cup. I mean, it's probably 2.5 cups.
You're worse than
You are you serious?
these. Let me have.
Okay, yeah. I'm one of those crazy people that like the caffeine doesn't bother me. So even when I get home tonight, what will I do when I get home? I will sit down, I will relax, and I will have a cup of coffee before I go to bed. Everybody's always like, "You can go to sleep, Ma." Yes, I can.
I'm used to it. I got heart issues.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, my doctor fusses at me because the disorder that I was diagnosed with last year, my blood pressure, it causes my blood pressure to shoot up or shoot down. And it's a form of tachycardia, so he doesn't want me drinking as much coffee as I do. But yeah,
I was like, I'll go with you.
This is how I have to do it though. Okay, this is what I tell my husband. Coffee in the morning and wine at night. That is how my children stay alive. Okay? And how I've stayed married for 20 years. It keeps him alive. Okay? I have to have those things. So, yeah. Who knows, right? So, any questions on that recipe at all? Really simple. Anybody could do that recipe. Yeah?
Do we need this for dessert? Or
I've got
one.
All right, so I don't think anybody's on Facebook with us anymore, so we're going to say goodnight. If you're one of Nikki's friends that are tuning in and you're watching the replay of this, then you can just make sure to go up to her event information. Her online ordering link is up there, and you can place your order online. Thank you guys so much.